Hi, thank you so much, Mr. Praveen, for having me today for this interview.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you, Miss Nasiha, for having me as well.
Okay, so this is a consent form that I would like you to sign here so that you agree to the term and condition.
Okay, I've read it actually. So I'm agreeable to the terms and I will sign it accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, first we will start the interview with a little bit introduction about yourself. Okay, can you please introduce yourself and elaborate slightly on your background? Where did you get your study and what is your current status of working right now?
My name is Praveen. I'm a practicing lawyer, mainly practicing in civil and criminal litigation. I'm based in Seremban currently. That's very much about myself.
Where did you learn law degree?
I obtained my degree from University of Malaya. I'm a 2018 graduate. Currently, my job designation is legal associate at a firm in Seremban.
Have you ever experienced being a taxpayer in Malaysia?
To be honest, not yet. But I am anticipating in the coming years I would be a taxpayer. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you know how much money or salary that you have to receive in order for you to file for a tax?
If I'm not mistaken, there's a threshold. The correct threshold will be 36,000 and above, if I'm not mistaken. I stand corrected, but that would be the threshold amount, which would entitle me to or require me to file my tax returns accordingly with the regulating bodies.
How do you plan to file for it? Will you go to the counter of NHDN or will you do it online?
I am yet to see how efficient is the online system service provider as of now. If it is user friendly, then of course I would opt with the online service provider.
If you don't mind me asking, what about your firm? How do your firm file for taxation?
In terms of firm, we are quite organized. We have our accounting department, and it is delegated to the accounting departments and the officials there. So they would endeavor to file in the required details with the taxing regulatory body, which would be LHDN.
Have you ever been involved in the process of your firm's preparing and submitting and calculating the tax?
No.
Okay, so it's solely on the accountant?
Yes.
Okay, what do you know or understand about taxation?
Taxation is a very interesting area. It is very wide as well. In our country, I think it is an obligation of citizens who pass a certain threshold. It is actually a statutory obligation towards the country, I would say. Yeah. So it may differ in terms of how it is taxed and what are the things that we taxed for. But generally, it's an obligation we all owe to our country for the betterment of the nation.
What is your opinion about people who do not file for tax on purpose?
That is, in legal terms, tax evasion. And throughout my short span of practice, I have come across a few scenarios like this. I've defended a few clients as well. What I tend to believe is that, like I said, since it is a statutory or a legal requirement for us to adhere to, as part of the duty we owe to our country, evading tax is quite rightly penalized in our country, and it should remain that way. So I do not condone to such behavior where one who is to pay tax or to be taxed ought not take steps to evade the same.
May I know, on your experience, that you have mentioned you were defending clients
Yep.
who evaded the tax? Yeah. Do you think it was because the lack of knowledge from taxation, or the client that you defended was just on purpose, not despite maybe perhaps having knowledge that how tax works and everything?
Yes, exactly. But before that, I would just like to reconcile that they were alleged to have evaded tax. My client was alleged to have evaded his obligation to pay tax, wherein he came to us to seek help. But that goes to the second part of the question, because what he claims is that he did not know. So that goes back to the question of knowledge. So he says that he was served with notices from the tax regulatory body, but he was under the impression that this came from scammers, because nowadays it is common that these scamming syndicates often call and represent themselves to be calling from LHDN to say that you have an arrear of this many thousand. So he did not know. This goes back to knowledge. He did not know, and he decided not to seek advice. That is where he made a mistake.
I see.
Yes. So when the given time expired, the tax regulators commenced legal action, and he faced the predicament he faced. But of course, I'm not allowed to divulge on the intricacies of how the case went on and all that. But roughly, this is the scenario. This is what happened. This is what happened, and what we did was we defended him and advised him accordingly. And yeah, personally, I think that it narrows down to knowledge about how taxation works generally in our country as a framework.
May I ask, the client that you mentioned just now, was it sole proprietorship or a company?
It's a company.
It's a
It's a company involving in general works. But yeah.
By right, usually a company would have their accountants.
Yes, they do have the accounting preferred accountants and all that, but I don't know, for some reasons we have to take the case as per instructed by them. So of course that were part of our conversations throughout the retainer, which I believe will not be ethical for me to divulge further. But yeah, we took everything into account. But what is crucial or essential here is, according to what I can see, is that the client did not know his obligations owed to the regulators. So I'm of the view that if at all he knew that this is how it works, individually, the client is actually the client who approached us is actually one of the directors, one of the many directors. So he individually did not know how this thing works. Hence, he could not move his board of directors to act in a way the regulators would have. So the accountant, on the accountant's part, I believe there were no wrongdoings or anything in terms of evading tax and all that. So that's why I say it's just a misapprehension of knowledge, insufficiency of knowledge in terms of tax generally.
Do you think that as a practitioner lawyer, if you were to learn taxation during your undergraduate studies, would it be helpful in your career?
Yes, I will have to agree with that, because the cases that we encounter on a routine basis involves a lot of taxation in different manners. So we have, for example, the usual ones would be the income tax. Sometimes when we acquire or dispose properties, we have the real property gains tax as well. That is another form of taxation as well. So yeah, it would have been much more meaningful if I had the opportunity to explore taxation as a syllabus during my undergraduate stages. But nevertheless, since we are only trained how to apply the law, I'm able to interpret it accordingly and practice it accordingly. But it's just that, yeah, I feel that it would have been better if we had an opportunity.
What do you think that if we incorporate taxation in your undergraduate syllabus with, for example, 3 credit hour, do you think that is too taxing for a law student, or that is acceptable?
No, I think 3 credit hours would be good as long as it can be assimilated into the syllabus one way or the other. That would, of course, be contingent upon the university. But what is important is that it is being exposed to students to a certain extent. Then it's good enough, because at least we know these things exist, and when in practice a client comes over with this kind of difficulties, we will know where to turn.
In your opinion, how do you think taxation incorporated in undergraduate syllabus would affect the society in the future?
I would like to think that this question would narrow down to legal practitioners during our undergraduate studies. Then it is very important, because we are going to be the future lawyers, not only practicing lawyers like me who defend clients, but they are also going to be products of undergraduate law students who are going to be regulators as well. So it will not be fair for us to expect them to learn about their area of job only when they join LHDN or any other taxing sub bodies, regulatory bodies. So it's extremely important that knowledge about taxation being incorporated in the syllabus as well, because we do not know individually. Like, for example, my institution, my university, we had about 150 students per batch. So we will not be able to assure that all 150 will become lawyers, private lawyers like me. So private practitioners like me. So that is the reason why I believe that just slight exposure on taxation would be good.
Do you think it's a missed out that they didn't include taxation during your undergraduate syllabus?
Personally, yes. Like I said, I would have been. Even if it was offered as an elective, I would have signed up, because I know nowadays the trend is there. It can stand as an independent source of practice, area of practice for lawyers, for regulators, and all important stakeholders. This taxation can stand as a separate area of practice. So there are firms, for example, in Kuala Lumpur, they only specialize in tax. So that is it's actually a very wide area of practice. That's why they can specialize and they can run their business just based on tax, which means defending clients, submitting tax returns for them, resolving disputes, you name it, things like that. So yeah, that's why I think that if it was even offered as an elective, I would have signed up, and maybe if it was interesting for me to pursue, it could have opened job opportunities for me to specialize in tax as well. So this is from a legal practitioner's perspective.
Oh, that's very insightful, because I've never looked into that area where legal practitioners become tax advisors to clients.
Yes.
That's really interesting.
It is actually a very isolated area of practice, but that's why only the selected or handful of us can take up such practice and specialize in it. Taking up is general. As long as we have a client wishing to appoint us, we can take up the matter and defend them, so no issues. But to specialize in it, it requires a certain extent of expertise.
In the future, perhaps what is your plan for the future? Do you normally legal practitioners, they would want to open their own firm? Would you hire accountants to do your tax as your prior company, or would you do it yourself?
I am of the view that due to work requirements, I may not be able to fully apply myself to the process. So I think in that sense I would seek the expertise of agents or accountants who can help me produce a complete tax returns, for example, because just like my client, I do not wish to be on the wrong side of the law, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So in terms of fulfilling my obligation towards the country, I think I would of course resort to an accountant because it is their area of expertise, and I'm totally fine to trust them with that. Yeah.
What is your opinion with the current system that we are using? Currently, Malaysia is using self-assessment system where you file for your own tax,
Yes.
you declare your own income. Do you think that is preferable, or should we use another system where the government links with your own income, with your bank account, or such a thing, like automatic system?
I think the government, I wouldn't say that the government through its agents like LHDN, of course. What I like about the mechanism is that they give you an opportunity to first come transparently to do what is right. So the statute, for example, like the Income Tax Act, that if I'm not mistaken, Section 70 onwards until Section 100 provides a very clear-cut mechanism where you can, as a taxpayer yourself, you can come forward and be transparent to the regulators. And if the regulators think that they require more, they can always reach out. So it's always a two-way communication in terms of filing our returns and all. This is just in terms of income tax. So I think the current mechanism is very good, where we are allowed to conduct the self-assessment, file in what we feel is important, and allow the regulators to have a check and balance on that. So maybe there may be challenges there in terms of self-assessment, but I think the mechanism is good enough. But one crucial point is that how much people can comply. That since these are all written codified laws, so in terms of compliance, it will be a challenge. And that's why I think we have cases of tax evasion, similar circumstances like that.
So, do you agree to incorporate taxation in all, like not just from the perspective of legal practitioner, but in all programs, in all programs that is being offered in the university?
Yes. I think regardless of what course a student registers for, or whether it is relevant to his practice or work profession later on, what happens is that every individual in this country would prospectively be a taxpayer. So in terms of basic knowledge, to spread awareness and inculcate basic knowledge, it should be offered or assimilated in all education syllabuses nationwide in Malaysia, so that it is uniform, and we know our obligation towards the country, and we know how tax that we pay is used for the benefit of the country, and why do we do it, the reasons and all that. Because misapprehension or inadequacy of knowledge is certainly a pulling factor, where we have cases of tax evasion and non-compliance.
In your opinion, okay, so in your opinion, when people have the knowledge of taxation, wouldn't it lead to tax avoidance because they know and they can manipulate it now? What is your opinion about that?
As a legal practitioner myself, I am of the view that the law is robust enough where there is minimal to zero room for tax evasion. And that's why nowadays we have all this litigation where the regulators come after tax evaders for non-compliance, because ample opportunity is first given like you said just now, self-assessment is of course a mechanism for us to come before the regulators in a transparent manner. So it means that the obligation is on us to file in our returns and make full and frank disclosure. But failing which, the tax regulators initiate legal actions against us, where I think the legal provisions and requirements are solid. The foundational framework is very solid, because of course we in legislating our acts, our statutory requirements, we model after other countries. So there's actually minimal room for someone to evade tax using the knowledge that they have and be successful with it. That means there are very little cases, or zero cases, I would like to say, that a tax evader comes out successful to evade his tax. Somehow or other he would be under the scrutiny of the regulators, because the legal framework is solid, strong.
I see. But we have the case of our ex-Prime Minister. He evaded a lot of tax. Millions of it, isn't it?
Yes, but in that sense he did not do it, I would like to think that he did not do it as a person, ordinary person like you and me. He did it, that's why the allegations against him in the court is for abuse of power. He was in a position of power. He is alleged to have used that power to evade his tax, so not to pay his tax. So he is seen to be said, people are saying that he used his power to say, look, I'm the Prime Minister, so I need not pay tax and nobody is going to come after me. So that is the position that he took. On the other hand, evaders like from other parts of the community, for example, company owners, all that, they may resort to technical ways to evade tax. For example, layering their funds, layering their profits, or channeling it out to other sister companies or dormant companies or personal accounts. They do things like that. That I see as a much more blatant way of evading tax. That is much more intentional. So in terms of comparing with the ex-Prime Minister himself, the mechanism of how they do it may differ. That is my view. And of course there are other ways that one can evade tax.
Currently, the current government, the new one, the combination of Pakatan Harapan and some other parties, they wanted to introduce GST again in 2023, and people are pushing it. Why do you think is that? Is it because of knowledge? Is it because of there's no communication between the government and the people? What do you think? Like, what's going on here?
People I think you meant to say that people are opposing the idea of reintroducing GST?
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah, because one way is maybe the people, I do not speak for the people, but I am of the view that they think that it is very inconsistent to fall forward with GST and then coming back, revoking the GST and coming back to the SST mechanism, and then now wanting to re-implement. So the mixture of when democracy comes in, when a new government comes in, whether taxes need to change is of course the public concern at the moment. But the second part of the question was knowledge purporting to be GST, and yeah, but I'm thinking that knowledge-wise it's actually very wide. What we know is that there's only a small percentile of GST or SST being imposed on us for our daily expenditure, but there is a very wide mechanism behind it, how the government arrives at it, and then of course they will have to take into account the current economical nature of the country for imposition or reintroduction or revocation or things like that. But yeah, personally I think that consistently having one mechanism of taxing would be a good solution instead of trying to fall back and forth introducing different taxes. So,
I mean, you have mentioned about regulators. It would be better if they possess the knowledge of taxation. In this scenario that we are talking right now, it seems that economists, should have the knowledge about taxation, and I believe so. Economists do not taxation in their undergraduate syllabus.
I am not so sure because I did not have that as part of my syllabus. But yeah, economists, members of the general public, as long as their profession would require them to apply taxation-based rules and law, I think it will be always prudent to have it as part of their educational system. Or otherwise, it will amount to a shocking, or they will be taken by surprise when they first join into work, and only then they are sent to learn up their area, their niche area. Then I think it would be better for them to have a basic knowledge first. So it could be people from the faculty of business, business administration, economics, accounting, lawyers, legal, law undergraduates. So for others, maybe it can be implemented as an elective course first. So or under heavy encouragement, where the faculty encourages these students to at least sign up for this taxation law or basic knowledge about law, so that once they graduate, they will be more responsible and they will be sound about how these things work.
Can we explore in the area of compliance, if you don't mind?
Yes.
These days in Malaysia, sole proprietorship entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs, they do not declare taxation to LHDN. And why do you think this is so? I believe so they are aware that they're making a lot of money. We can see them online. So why do you think?
Yes, to a certain extent, I think it is the public perspective towards. That's why I tend to think that taxation surrounds around political, social, and economic aspects of our life. So the reason why I see most evading tax or trying not to declare their taxes transparently is because they do not fully believe in the government, on how the government is going to utilize the tax for the betterment of the nation, especially when Malaysia was facing problems politically, incompetency of leaders in the past, like previous prime ministers and all of that. So that's why they tend to think that why pay my tax when all that is going to happen is they're going to mismanage it. So rather than paying it to the government for them to swindle the public funds, I might as well resort to channeling it to my friends or family or under-declared. So that is the reason why I think compliance is a little bit lax in our country, but that is not for all. But generally, I think perception towards our government is an influencing factor towards compliance. Apart from other things that we have discussed, like knowledge, sufficiency of knowledge. But in terms of professionals, as you said, they are aware and they are advised to be transparent as possible, and yet they choose not to be compliant. Then of course it contributes to evasion, where I tend to think that the moral aspect is that they are under the misapprehension that one bad leader or one bad administration will make their obligation towards the country meaningless.
What is your perception of how Malaysia is going and managing the tax right now? Are you satisfied, or are you actually a little bit dissatisfied being a citizen of Malaysia?
No, I'm not dissatisfied being a citizen of Malaysia. I love my country, but I actually do not know the intricacies. But from what I see in news reports, whenever I read the newspaper and all that, there are more enforcement. Enforcement has been strengthened, and there's more increased or heightened prosecution of tax evaders. These are and it involves big sum. I think it started with previous prime ministers themselves, people involved. What all this contributes to the society is that message as well, saying that now we are turning things around, that everyone is equal before the law. That is very, very important. And yeah, I think people do get the message, because everyone is finally treated as equal before the law. So hopefully in the coming times the same message can be spread, and awareness in terms of knowledge that we discussed just now can be increased as well. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Praveen, for your time today for this interview. I really appreciate you.
You're most welcome, Miss Nasir. I thank you for having me today as well.
Your insights has really gives a deeper perspective for us to understand how taxation would impact people in the working culture.
Yes, I'm glad that you managed to get some information, useful information relevant to your study, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.